My parents ignored me so completely they didn't notice I'd left home, until they found my viral blog exposing their neglect, sparking a family war. There's a 5-year gap between me and my next sibling. To be honest, it always felt like I was invisible growing up. My siblings all had their own stuff going on, and I guess my parents just assumed that because I wasn't sick or having mental health issues like the rest of them, I didn't need them. The others were always in and out of hospitals, therapy, you name it. And me, I was just there, the glass child they call it, right? You can see me, but you don't really notice me. I was fine with that, for the most part. I spent a lot of time by myself, playing video games, reading, keeping to myself. I had to learn to entertain myself because, well, no one else was really around to do it. It's not like I was expected to take care of my siblings, though. I've seen other people talk about how they had to sacrifice their childhoods to take care of brothers or sisters, but that wasn't me. My parents handled all that, so credit where credit's due. But because I wasn't causing problems, because I wasn't in crisis mode like my siblings, I just kind of fell through the cracks. I didn't need help. So, I didn't get any. I don't think my parents did it on purpose or anything. It's just that when you got 3 kids who are constantly dealing with health stuff, the one who's healthy is kind of an afterthought. They were always so busy with hospital visits, doctor's appointments, and school meetings for the others that I just became this kid who didn't cause trouble and didn't get attention. Anyway, I wasn't completely alone. When I was about 10, I made 2 friends, Emily and Sophia, who were basically in the same boat. Their families weren't great either, and we kind of found each other in this unspoken way. We just clicked, you know. We understood what it was like to be ignored, to be left out, and that bonded us. Years later, it was Emily who urged me to start the blog The Glass Child, where I poured out my story. Anonymously at first, until it blew up online, racking up thousands of shares. Over time, they became more like my real family than my actual family ever did. We were inseparable all through school, and we stuck together even after high school ended. We went to college together, graduated together, and eventually moved to a new state together. It was like we built our own little family out of the scraps of what our real families couldn't give us. As for my parents, we didn't talk much once I left home. My mom would text me now and then, mostly small talk stuff like, how's school, or what are you doing for work, that kind of thing. Our relationship was super surface level, so yeah, I didn't expect much from them, and I didn't ask for much either. I think what really made it clear how disconnected I was from them was this one phone call from my mom last year. It was a few days before Thanksgiving 2022, and she called me out of nowhere. Now, we never call each other, so right off the bat I knew something was up. "Lauren, your blog's tearing us apart," she screamed, voice cracking. "How could you humiliate us like that?" I froze, realizing they'd found my posts, now viral, exposing years of being ignored. The last time I had spoken to her on the phone was maybe a year before that, when she told me about the time and place of one of my sister's funerals. That's how little we talked. So anyway, she calls me and asks what time I'm coming for Thanksgiving. I'm sitting there like, wait, what? Because I had no idea they were even planning anything for Thanksgiving. It wasn't like we had some big family tradition or whatever. In fact, in my whole life, I can remember maybe 2 times that they even tried to do Thanksgiving or Christmas. It just wasn't a thing in my family. I told her that I already had plans. I mean, I was going on a hiking trip with Emily and Sophia, so it wasn't like I could just drop everything and come over even if I wanted to. Plus, I live in Boise, Idaho, and they're in Lincoln, Nebraska, and I would have needed to book a plane ticket months ago if I was going to come. But she acted like I was just being difficult and then started guilt-tripping me, saying she was going to be all alone because my dad was going to spend the day visiting my brother in the facility he's in. He's like a 3-hour drive from them, so apparently my dad was going to be gone most of the day. I get it, I really do. But she gave me 2 days' notice, 2 days, and I was supposed to just magically show up and make her feel better. I told her I couldn't come, and she got mad, saying I didn't care about the family or some crap like that. "You've already shamed us online," she spat. "Now you won't even show up?" I repeated that I already had plans, and she hung up on me. I scrolled through our old texts just to make sure I hadn't missed anything, but nope, nothing about Thanksgiving. Nothing about wanting to see me. She just sprung it on me last minute like I was supposed to drop everything and be there. I ended up sending her a text later that night, saying that I had a hiking trip booked for Christmas and wouldn't be able to come for that either, but I'd love to catch up with her and Dad after the New Year. She didn't reply. A few days after that whole Thanksgiving mess, I had pretty much moved on by then. I was getting ready for my hiking trip with Emily and Sophia. We'd been planning it for months and I was super excited. Then, out of nowhere, I get this text from my dad. Now, my dad almost never texts me, so I figured it was going to be important. But instead of something reasonable, he hits me with, "If you don't come home for Christmas, I'm stopping your rent payment." At first, I actually laughed. Like, what? I've been paying my own rent for 4 years. What payments? I thought maybe he was confused or he was talking about someone else. So I sent him a text back reminding him that I had been covering my own rent since I started working as a graphic designer, and if he thought he was still paying for my rent, then he needed to check his bank account because someone was scamming him. But no, a few hours later, I get another text from him, this time saying that I was being selfish and ungrateful. He threw in a bunch of stuff about how they'd sacrificed so much for me and my siblings, and how I didn't appreciate any of it. "Your blog's lies are killing us," he texted, stunning me. They thought I'd fabricated it all. Okay, first of all, I never asked for anything from them. Second, I didn't even know they thought they were paying for my rent because my aunt covered my college tuition. She told me straight up that she didn't want my parents messing with my education, so she took care of everything herself. So, yeah, I had no idea what my dad was even talking about. So, I texted back, being as polite as I could manage, and said something like, "I'm sorry you feel that way, but Aunt Linda paid for my college. The blog's my truth, not lies. I'm happy to catch up after the holidays, but I already have plans." I thought that would shut it down, but nope. My dad decides to go full drama mode and starts texting me about how I've abandoned the family, how I'm turning my back on them, and that he's done helping me out if I won't make an effort. I wanted to just ignore it, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. The more I thought, the more pissed off I got. It's like they hadn't spoken to me in months, hadn't bothered to check in or ask how I was doing, but the second they needed something, it was my responsibility to make everything better. I was supposed to be their backup plan or something. So I called Emily and Sophia to vent. They both said the same thing, that it sounded like my parents were just using me as a guilt trip. Emily said that they probably wanted me back home for Christmas so they wouldn't feel bad about themselves, not because they actually wanted to see me. Sophia, as usual, didn't hold back and said straight up, "Screw them. You don't owe them anything." I decided to sleep on it and cool off before responding again. It's my dad, but this time the text is short and cold. He says, "If you don't come home, don't bother coming back at all." I read that and honestly I just felt numb. I stared at the message for a long time and part of me wanted to fire back and say something nasty. I wanted to call them out on all the times they ignored me, on all the times I felt like I didn't even exist in that house, but instead I just didn't respond. I put my phone down, rolled over, and tried to sleep. I didn't want to get dragged into some big family drama right before the holidays. I didn't want to deal with the guilt trips, the accusations, or whatever other crap they were going to throw at me, so I just left it. The next day, I woke up to more texts, this time from my mom. She didn't say much, just that they were disappointed in me, that they didn't understand why I was being so distant, and that they hoped I'd change my mind. I ignored the texts again and focused on getting ready for the hiking trip. Emily and Sophia were pumped, and honestly, I was too. It felt like the perfect escape from all the family nonsense. We hit the road the next day, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't think about my parents. I didn't feel guilty. I didn't feel sad. I just felt free. But of course, things couldn't stay peaceful forever. Just when I thought I could move past it, I got another message from my mom. This time, right in the middle of the trip, she wasn't giving up. She said that if I didn't come home soon, they'd have to start making decisions about the future without me. Decisions that I wouldn't like. "Take down that blog or we'll sue you," she threatened, escalating the stakes. That's when it clicked. They were planning something bigger than just Christmas. Maybe they were talking about one of my brothers or something with the house. I didn't know what, but suddenly it made sense why they were pushing so hard. They didn't want me around just for the holidays. They wanted me back in the fold for some bigger reason. And honestly, that realization was like a punch in the gut. I was done. So, after that whole mess with my parents trying to guilt-trip me, I thought things would just die down. I ignored their texts, went on the hiking trip, and tried to focus on the fact that I had my own life, my own plans, and I wasn't going to let them drag me back into their world of guilt and expectations. I was back home in Boise, just getting settled into my usual routine as a graphic designer, when I got a message from my older brother Nathan. Now, I hadn't talked to Nathan in months, probably longer. Actually, Nathan was the one sibling who, when we were growing up, I thought would maybe understand me a little. He wasn't as sick as my other brothers, so I always figured we could have had something more, but he was always too wrapped up in his own life. Anyway, seeing his name pop up on my phone surprised me. His message was simple. "Hey, we need to talk." I didn't know what he wanted, but I wasn't in the mood for more family drama. I texted back, "About what?" A few minutes later, he calls me. I debated whether to answer, but curiosity got the better of me, so I picked up the phone. Before I could even say hello, he jumped straight into it. "Mom and Dad have been talking about making you the legal guardian for one of the boys when they're gone." I swear I almost dropped the phone. My heart was racing, and I just sat there, stunned for a few seconds. "And get this," Nathan added, "they found a letter you wrote as a kid begging for attention. They're using it to justify dumping this on you now." "What the hell are you talking about?" I finally managed to ask. Nathan sighed. "Like I'm the one being unreasonable. You know how things are with Mom and Dad. They've got a lot on their plate with the other boys, and they're not going to be around forever. They need to know someone's going to step up and take care of things when they're gone." I could feel my blood boiling. And they think that someone is me after everything. After all the ignoring and guilt-tripping, they just assume I'm going to drop everything and take over their mess? Nathan didn't seem to get why I was so upset. "Look, I know it's a lot, but you're the only one who's really stable. The rest of us, we've got our own issues." "Yeah, well, maybe you guys should have thought about that before now. I didn't even know this was a thing. They never told me they were going to talk to you about it," he said. "But I figured you should know before they tried to spring it on you." I was pissed. This wasn't just about Christmas or Thanksgiving anymore. This was bigger. They were planning something long-term, and they hadn't even thought to talk to me until now, when it was convenient for them. They hadn't spoken to me in years, and now they wanted me to step in as the responsible one. No, just no. "So what? They've been discussing this behind my back?" I asked, still trying to wrap my head around it. "Like they just decided I'd take on the responsibility without even asking me?" "Yeah, pretty much," Nathan admitted. "They've been planning for a while." Part of me wanted to scream at Nathan, but I knew it wasn't really his fault. He was just the messenger. But that didn't change the fact that my parents were about to screw me over in the biggest way possible. They weren't just asking for a favor. They were asking me to dedicate the rest of my life to cleaning up after them. I was done being invisible, but I sure as hell wasn't going to become their backup plan now. "So, what am I supposed to do?" I asked, feeling more defeated than anything. "Just drop my whole life and move back to Lincoln? Give up everything I've worked for?" Nathan didn't have an answer for that. He tried to talk about how hard things were for our parents, how they were struggling to manage everything with my brother's care. But I didn't care. I'd spent my whole life being pushed to the side because I wasn't a problem. Now, they wanted to use me because I was the only one who had my life together. It wasn't fair. "I'm not doing it," I said, cutting him off mid-sentence. "I'm not going to be their backup. They didn't give a crap about me for the last 22 years, and they sure as hell don't get to make me responsible for everyone now." Nathan was silent for a second, then said, "I get it. I do. But you're still part of the family." Family? Sure, I was part of the family, but only when it was convenient for them, only when they needed something. When I was a kid, they didn't care if I was okay or if I needed help, but now that they were scared of what the future held, suddenly I was the one they needed. "Tell them I'm not interested," I said, "and don't bother calling me about this again." I hung up before Nathan could respond. I felt like my whole life had been leading to this moment, where I'd finally had enough. Enough of the guilt trips, enough of the manipulative texts, enough of being ignored and then used. I wasn't going to be their safety net. A few days passed without any contact from Nathan or my parents. It was almost like they were waiting for me to come to my senses, to change my mind and be the good daughter they'd suddenly decided I should be. But I wasn't about to budge. I wasn't going to let them dump their problems on me just because I was the only one left standing. Then a letter came in the mail. It was from my mom. She hadn't even called. The letter was long and rambling, filled with the same guilt-tripping crap I'd heard before. She went on about how much they needed me, how hard things were for them, and how they didn't know what they were going to do if I didn't help. But what really pissed me off was the last part. My mom wrote, "We're not asking for much, Lauren. We just need to know that when we're gone, someone will step up for the family." Enclosed was a photocopy of that childhood letter, my desperate pleas underlined in red as if to shame me into compliance. That's when I realized what this was really about. They didn't care about me. They just cared about making sure their mess was cleaned up after they were gone. They didn't want me back in their lives because they missed me or loved me. They wanted me because I was convenient, because I was the only one who hadn't fallen apart. I crumpled up the letter and threw it in the trash. I was done. After that letter from my mom, I was already done with their guilt trips, their manipulations, their trying to make me responsible for their mess. A week or two after I trashed the letter, I got another call. This time from a number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't pick up, but something in me was curious. Either way, I picked up. "Hey, Lauren, it's Hannah." Now, Hannah is one of my sisters. We were never really close. I mean, she was always dealing with her own stuff, hospitals, therapists, all of it. I felt bad for her growing up, sure, but I didn't really know her. We were basically strangers living under the same roof, so hearing from her now after everything felt weird. Hey, I said, "Look." She started, "I know things have been kind of rough between you and Mom and Dad, but I really need you to listen to what I'm going to say." "What is it?" I asked, trying to sound neutral, but already bracing myself for whatever crap was coming. She took a deep breath and then said, "They're not doing well. Like really not doing well. Dad's health is going downhill fast, and they're freaking out because no one's stepping up to help with the boys. They're scared, Lauren. They don't know what to do. And they think your blog's why no one's helping," she whispered, dropping a bombshell. "They say it's turned the community against them." I didn't say anything for a second. It wasn't that I didn't care. I did. I didn't want to see anyone suffer, not even my parents. But after everything, after years of them not giving a crap about me, I couldn't just rush in and fix things for them. I wasn't their Band-Aid. "I'm sorry to hear that," I said carefully. "But I can't just drop everything. I have a life too, Hannah." She sighed, and I could tell she was frustrated. "I get that, but you're the only one who's in a position to help. Nathan's barely holding it together, and you know what's going on with me and the others. There's no one else, Lauren. They're desperate." "Desperate because they ignored this for years," I shot back, feeling the anger bubble up again. "They let this all build up, thinking it would just go away, and now, because I'm the one who managed to get out and make something of my life, it's my responsibility." "That's not fair, Hannah." "I know it's not fair," she said quietly, "but this is where we are. They need help. No matter what I did, no matter how far I tried to move away from it, they always found a way to drag me back." "I'm not doing it," I said, my voice sharper than I intended. "I'm not going to be the one to clean up their mess. They didn't care about me when I was a kid, and they sure as hell don't get to come to me now just because it's convenient. I've got my own life. They need to figure this out themselves." I could hear the hurt in Hannah's voice when she spoke again. "I get it, Lauren, I really do. But this isn't about you or me. It's about the family. It's about what's going to happen to the boys when they're gone. If we don't step up, who will? My parents had spent years neglecting me, pushing me to the side, and now they were trying to use me as their escape plan. And my siblings, they were stuck in the middle of it all, just as trapped as I was, only they didn't have the strength to fight back." "I'm sorry," I said again, softer this time. "But I can't. I won't." "Okay," she said finally, her voice flat. "I'll tell them." She hung up before I could say anything else. And I didn't owe my parents anything, I knew that, but still, it hurt. It hurt to know that my family was falling apart and I was powerless to stop it. Or maybe I wasn't powerless. I just wasn't willing to sacrifice myself for them anymore. A few days later, I got another letter from my mom. This time it was even worse. She didn't even bother with pleasantries. She went straight for the guilt trip. She wrote about how disappointed she was in me, how I was letting the family down, how she couldn't believe I would turn my back on them in their time of need. She threw in a bunch of stuff about how hard it was for her and my dad, how they'd sacrificed so much for us, and how she didn't know what she'd done to deserve a daughter who was so selfish. It was brutal, and for a second it worked. I felt that old familiar sting of guilt. But then I remembered all the years I'd spent being invisible. All the times they'd forgotten about me, all the moments I needed them, and they weren't there. And I realized that this wasn't about them needing help. This was about control. This was about them trying to pull me back into their web to make me feel like I owed them something. But I didn't owe them anything. Not anymore. I crumpled up the letter and threw it in the trash, just like the last one. I was done. I was done being their pawn. I was done letting them manipulate me. I had my own life now, and I wasn't going to let them take that away from me. The next day, I blocked their numbers. I blocked Nathan, too, just to be safe. It wasn't an easy decision, but it was the only one that felt right. I couldn't keep letting them drag me down, keep making me feel like I was responsible for their problems. They made their choices, and now they had to live with them. For the first time in a long time, I felt free. Blocking their numbers felt like a relief, like this heavy weight had been lifted off my shoulders. For the first time in, well, ever, I had control over the situation. I wasn't sitting there waiting for another guilt-tripping message from my mom or a surprise call from Nathan. It was quiet, peaceful. About 3 weeks after I blocked them, I got a knock on my door. I wasn't expecting anyone, and honestly, I thought it might be a delivery or something, but when I opened the door, there she was, my mom, standing right there on my doorstep like she had every right to be there. But I didn't feel sorry for her, not anymore. "What are you doing here?" I asked, keeping my voice as calm as I could. She didn't answer right away. Finally, she spoke. "We need to talk, Lauren." I sighed. "No, we really don't. I've said everything I needed to say. I've made my decision." She stepped forward like she was going to come in, but I stood in the doorway, blocking her. I wasn't about to let her in and let this turn into another guilt trip. "Please, just listen," she said, her voice softer now. "Your father's getting worse. He's in and out of the hospital, and we don't know how much time he has left. I don't know what to do, Lauren." "And your blog?" she choked out. "It's ruined our reputation. Neighbors won't even look at us anymore." And I'm not heartless. I didn't want my dad to suffer, but after everything they'd put me through, I couldn't just drop everything and rush to their side. "I'm sorry," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, "but this isn't my problem. You and Dad have had years to figure this out. You can't just show up now and expect me to fix everything." She looked at me like I'd slapped her. "I'm not asking you to fix anything. I just need you to be there for the family." "For the family?" I repeated, almost laughing. "What family? The one that ignored me for 22 years, the one that only talks to me when they need something. That's not a family, Mom." "That's just manipulation." Her eyes widened, and for a second I thought maybe she was going to argue with me. But instead, she just started crying, right there on my doorstep. She broke down in tears, and I didn't know what to do. I wasn't going to invite her in, but I couldn't just stand there and watch her cry either. "Look," I said, my voice softer now, "I get that this is hard for you. I really do. But I'm not your backup plan. I'm not the person who's going to come in and make everything okay. You made your choices. Now you have to deal with them." She wiped her eyes and looked up at me, and I could see the anger starting to replace the sadness. "We did the best we could, Lauren. You don't understand what it was like raising all of you, dealing with everything. We didn't have time for you because we were trying to keep everyone else alive. And that's not my fault," I said, my voice firm now. "You made the choice to have 4 kids. You made the choice to focus on everyone else and leave me behind. That was your decision, not mine. And now you're trying to make me feel guilty for it. "I won't do it, Mom, I won't." She stood there for a long time, not saying anything. Maybe in her mind I was still that little kid she could ignore because I wasn't causing trouble. But I wasn't that kid anymore. I was done being invisible. Finally she spoke. "So that's it? You're just going to turn your back on us?" I shook my head. "No, you turned your back on me a long time ago. I'm just finally walking away." She didn't have anything to say to that. She just turned and walked away, heading back to her car. I watched her go. After she left, I went back inside and sat down. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't even hurt. I was just done. Done with the guilt, the manipulation, the constant feeling like I wasn't enough. I wasn't going to be their backup plan. I wasn't going to be their last resort. I had my own life to live, and I wasn't going to let them drag me down anymore. The next few weeks were quiet. I didn't hear from anyone. No calls, no letters, nothing. And honestly, it was the best I'd felt in a long time. I focused on work, on my friends, on my life. I wasn't looking over my shoulder, waiting for the next message from them. I wasn't living in the shadow of their expectations anymore. And then, about a month later, I got an email. Not from my mom or my dad this time, but from Nathan. It was short, just a few sentences, but it said everything I needed to know. "Dad passed away last night. I thought you should know." I later learned from Sophia, who saw it online, that my final blog post, published that same night, had gone viral again, unknowingly marking his death with my truth. I wasn't surprised. I knew this was coming, but I didn't feel sad either. I didn't feel much of anything, honestly. I thought about responding. I thought about calling Nathan, asking how he was holding up, maybe even offering my condolences. But then I realized that this was just another step in the same cycle, another chance for them to pull me back in, and I wasn't going to fall for it this time. I kept the blog up, despite their threats, because it was my voice, my freedom. But sometimes, late at night, I wonder if my words cut too deep, if I'd won my independence at the cost of their ruin. I closed the email, took a breath, and moved forward, carrying both my truth and its weight.